Across the vast fields of Texas, wild hogs are appearing in ever-growing numbers and causing serious damage to agricultural production. They no longer move only under the cover of darkness, but now openly emerge in broad daylight, flooding into soybean fields, cornfields, and other crop-growing areas. Entire sounders feed on and trample the crops while using their powerful snouts to tear through the soil in search of food. Within just a few hours, carefully maintained farmland can be ruined and the ground completely churned up. The destruction can wipe out months of labor, time, and money invested by local farmers. Wild hogs are not only destroying farmland, but are also appearing with increasing frequency in urban areas. Large sounders openly walk down the middle of roads, move through neighborhoods, and come close to people's homes, leaving residents worried, frightened, and frustrated. At times, they occupy almost the entire roadway, forcing vehicles to slow down or stop, disrupting traffic and creating serious risks for drivers. While searching for food, the hogs also overturn trash cans, scatter garbage everywhere, and use their snouts to dig up the soil in grassy areas along the roadside. Faced with the continuing destruction caused by wild hogs, local residents decided to act immediately. A large network of steel traps was quickly installed along trails and in areas the animals frequently visited. Food was spread evenly inside the traps to lure them in, while surveillance cameras were positioned nearby to track their numbers and determine when they appeared. Instead of triggering the traps too soon, the group waited patiently for several nights. They knew the hogs were highly intelligent and could detect even the slightest sign that something was wrong. After many nights of patient monitoring, the farmers finally began to see encouraging signs. At first, the hogs remained outside the trap and fed only around its edges. Gradually, however, they became less suspicious and started moving farther inside. Camera images repeatedly showed more and more hogs entering the enclosure. Only after confirming that none were still standing outside did the farmers decide to activate the steel gate. The trap closed at exactly the right moment, securing a large number of wild hogs inside. It was a well-earned result after days of waiting, careful observation, and decisive action at the most critical moment.
Oh, hey, here you go.
The farmers then decided to expand their plan. This time, they selected a much larger trapping system in the hope of securing an even greater number of animals. Food was spread throughout the enclosure, and surveillance cameras were positioned at several different angles. That same night, the footage showed the hogs entering one after another, beginning with a few cautious individuals and eventually followed by nearly the entire sounder. When the right moment arrived, the gate was activated and closed quickly. The second trap produced exactly the result they had hoped for, once again proving that careful preparation and the right location can make a major difference. Following morning, the farmers traveled from one trapping site to another to inspect the results after a night of waiting. At the very first locations, the number of wild hogs secured inside far exceeded their expectations. The animals that had repeatedly invaded the fields, trampled crops, and torn up the soil were now contained within the steel enclosures. The team quickly carried out the next stage of the operation according to plan. Once the work was complete, they thoroughly cleaned the area, removed leftover bait and debris, and restored the site before continuing to the next inspection point. But the lesson they gained was more important than the final numbers. The farmers understood that protecting their crops does not depend solely on the strength of steel or the sophistication of modern equipment. Above all, it requires patience, careful observation, and a clear understanding of nature's patterns. Every footprint, every trail, and every change in the hog's behavior serves as a reminder that people cannot control everything through haste. Only by paying attention to the land, acting responsibly, and choosing the right moment can they protect the results of their labor while preserving the necessary balance between human life and the wild world.
Wild boar herds are becoming a serious problem across many farming regions as they continue to appear in large numbers and leave behind obvious signs of destruction. Using their powerful snouts, they tear up the ground in search of roots and insects. After nightfall, entire herds push deep into cornfields, feeding on the crops and trampling the stalks. However, their activity is not limited to the darkness. Even during the day, wild boars openly enter farmland. In a short period of time, once healthy rows of crops can be reduced to a churned-up mess, leaving farmers to face heavy losses. Wild boars are also moving deeper into residential neighborhoods, treating private yards as familiar feeding grounds. Day or night, they use their powerful snouts to dig constantly through the soil in search of roots and food hidden beneath the grass. Some herds return for several days in a row, digging up the same areas before spreading into neighboring lawns. As this activity continues, once level yards are torn apart and covered with uneven holes and piles of loose soil. Beyond damaging the landscape, wild boars also move onto city streets, knock over trash cans and rip open bags filled with leftover food. As the damage continued, farmers began carefully examining fresh tracks and the familiar routes leading from the forest into the surrounding farmland. After several days of observation, they decided to build the first trap along the edge of the woods, where the herd regularly passed before entering the fields. Food was scattered from outside the structure and gradually led deeper into the trap, while surveillance cameras were installed to record how many animals appeared and when they arrived. Rather than activating the trap as soon as a few boars stepped inside, the farmers waited patiently, allowing the entire herd to become familiar with the structure and gradually lose its caution. After several days of getting used to the trap, the wild boars became less wary and began moving farther inside. Through the monitoring cameras, the farmers watched them gather around the bait and feed eagerly as more animals entered one after another. Once most of the herd was fully inside the enclosure, the gate was immediately activated and closed, containing the animals that had repeatedly damaged local farms and gardens. This marked the first successful result of the trapping campaign and showed that careful monitoring, gradual conditioning, and waiting for the right moment had worked effectively.
Big old fluffy guy, aren't you? It's a big...
Building on that first success, the residents set up another trap along a different route frequently used by the herd, hoping to contain a larger number of animals in a single operation. Bait was scattered from the outside and led deep into the center of the enclosure, while a camera was positioned discreetly to monitor the entire area. That same night, a large number of wild boars appeared one after another, quickly entered the trap and gathered around the food. Once most of the herd was inside, the gate closed immediately, giving the residents another significant result in their effort to protect the surrounding farmland. The following morning, the farmer returned to inspect the trap and was surprised to find that more wild boars had been captured than expected. The results showed that the herd had completely lowered its guard and entered the baited area together during the night. All of the captured animals would be handled according to safe procedures, while the trap, leftover bait, and monitoring equipment would also be carefully removed. The trapping site would then be restored to its original condition to prevent waste from being left behind or any lasting damage to the surrounding environment.
There.
No one would expect a green-orange grove to hide so many surprises. Beneath the fruit-laden branches, the soil around the trees had been torn into large patches, as though someone had plowed it overnight. The tracks led straight to the far end of the grove. As the farmers arrived, an adult wild boar suddenly rushed from the bushes. The dogs immediately followed, but the animals changed direction, split up, and disappeared into the thick vegetation. The group had to spread out and search. When one person approached the water, a loud noise suddenly broke the silence. Another boar burst from its hiding place and vanished from sight within seconds. The next stop was a large pasture where livestock usually grazed each day. From a distance, the ground still looked green, but the damage became obvious up close. Grass had been uprooted and the soil was dug into many small pits. In only one night, the wild boars had transformed an area the farmers had spent months maintaining. To confirm their suspicions, an infrared camera was installed in the field. The footage removed every doubt, showing the herd tirelessly tearing through the grass during both day and night. After identifying the herd's route, the farmers decided to install a large net trap. The strong net was stretched into a wide circle and secured with deep stakes, while the lower edge was carefully arranged so the boars could enter. That evening, the camera recorded several animals already inside, feeding on the bait. Soon afterward, the rest of the large herd followed through the opening and gathered around the food. By the time they realized they were trapped, it was too late. They ran in circles searching for an exit but could not cross the flexible net. The following morning, the herd panicked again when the team arrived. The workers approached cautiously, sorted the animals, and moved them onto specialized vehicles to remove them from the farm. Not every area was suitable for a net trap, so the farmers placed a steel enclosure along the route where the boars often crossed the ditch. Before installation was finished, dark clouds gathered, the sky dimmed, and lightning flashed. Heavy rain quickly turned the dry ground into a flooded area. Work continued after the storm, with each fence panel carefully connected. Even the standing water could not stop them. That night, attracted by the smell of food, the herd crossed the shallow water and entered the trap. The steel gate closed as soon as the trigger was touched, sending the animals running in confusion. By morning, the water had drained away, revealing an unexpectedly large catch with several adults. The farmers approached slowly, handled each animal, counted them, and loaded them onto specialized vehicles. Besides damaging crops, wild boars can also provide food when handled properly. The meat is cleaned, divided into portions, and either grilled or slowly cooked in large pots. The preparation may be simple, but the meal still carries special meaning. With enough care, it can become a generous feast shared with friends and family. This reduces waste, adds a valuable food source, and partly offsets the losses caused by the herd. The wild boars that once left the orange grove and pasture in chaos were finally brought under control through patience and many days of preparation. From tracking and setting traps to collecting and preparing the animals, every step showed that farm life is never simple. The damage could not disappear immediately, but what was recovered was used rather than wasted. Perhaps the greatest lesson is not that humans defeat nature, but that they learn to adapt, coexist, and protect what matters most.
Wild boars have become one of the most destructive animals affecting agriculture in many regions. They often emerge at night, tearing up cornfields and damaging pastures in just a matter of hours. Before setting any traps, the control team spends several days surveying tracks, routing sites, and the routes most frequently used by the animals. Infrared cameras are placed along trails to determine when the boars are active and how many are moving through the area. Once enough data has been collected, large steel traps are installed at locations with the highest levels of wild boar activity. Bait is then placed inside the traps to encourage the animals to move deeper into the enclosure. As the team approached the first trap, the sound of metal rattling could already be heard from a distance. Inside, several wild boars were trapped and desperately trying to escape. They charged around the enclosure, slammed into the fencing, and became increasingly agitated when they noticed people nearby. The result exceeded all expectations and confirmed that wild boars were moving through the farmland far more frequently than originally estimated. After handling the captured animals, the team quickly moved on to the next trap to check the results from the previous night.
You going out killing? How many geese did you kill this morning? You were.
After the first trap delivered promising results, the team continued to a second location near the edge of the forest. Infrared footage from the night before showed a group of wild boars entering the baited area. As the last animal stepped inside, the trigger mechanism activated and the steel gate dropped shut. When the team arrived the following morning, what stood out most was not just the number of animals captured, but the size of several individuals inside the trap. The boars repeatedly slammed into the steel fencing, causing the entire structure to shake. After quickly dealing with the situation, the team continued on to inspect the remaining traps.
I've had to jump on it.
Moving deeper into the forest, the team checked the rest of the trap sites one by one. Although some locations produced little activity, fresh tracks and newly rooted ground showed that wild boars were still moving regularly throughout the area. Following those signs, the team made its way along a trail where infrared cameras had repeatedly recorded boars traveling during the night. Expectations for the trap at this location were modest, but the outcome turned out to be very different. Inside was a much larger group of wild boars than anticipated, suggesting that this trail serves as a major travel corridor for the local population.
Been hanging out even. Pretty calm.
As the sun began to disappear behind the trees, the team completed its work at the final checkpoint and started reviewing the day's results. Yet one reality remained unchanged. Fresh tracks scattered throughout the area showed that wild boars were still active in large numbers. Even so, the traps had produced encouraging results. The number of animals captured far exceeded initial expectations, demonstrating that the operation was making a meaningful impact. Although the battle against wild boars is far from over, the day's efforts helped reduce pressure on nearby farms and agricultural land. However, not every plan goes smoothly. In another trial, a trap was deployed with careful preparation, but a small error rendered the entire system ineffective. The gate closed more slowly than expected, giving the boars enough time to escape. This was not a victory earned through superior intelligence on the part of the animals, but rather a failure caused by a minor technical mistake. The incident demonstrated that in wildlife management, even a small oversight can undermine an entire control strategy. As the day comes to an end, the fight against wild boars is far from finished. The signs left behind across the fields make it clear that this challenge will continue for the foreseeable future. Even so, the results from these trapping efforts show that progress is being made. Every successful capture helps protect crops, reduce damage, and provide hope for farming communities that face the impact of wild boars every single day.
For many consecutive weeks, wild boar herds regularly left the natural forest to search for food in fields located along the forest edge. At first, only a few individuals appeared at night, before quickly returning to the forest before sunrise. However, over time, the number of boars increased significantly, and their visits became much more frequent. Many fields were left covered with fresh tracks, large patches of overturned soil, and uprooted crops after every night. Farmers discovered new damage every morning. As the destruction spread farther, larger farming areas began to suffer serious losses caused by the feeding activity of the wild boar herds. The wild boars gradually expanded beyond farmland and moved closer to places where people lived. They began appearing around villages near the forest, crossing narrow roads, and frequently moving across local streets during the night. Some individuals even entered parks, open lots, and food-rich areas near the outskirts of towns. Encounters between people and wild boars became increasingly common, raising concerns about public safety. In response, the management team decided to monitor the herd's appearance times, travel routes, and movement patterns over many consecutive nights. After collecting enough data from the cameras, local residents repeatedly organized efforts to drive the wild boars away in order to reduce the herd's presence. Hunting dogs were brought in to chase the animals whenever they entered farming areas, while some hunters used bows and arrows to control individuals that became separated from the group. Each time they were driven away, the boars quickly retreated into the forest, but returned after only a short time by following the same familiar routes. Through long-term monitoring, the management team identified the period when the herd gathered in the greatest numbers and began preparing a more effective trapping strategy. After determining the most suitable location from the monitoring data, the management team installed a large circular trap along the route the herd regularly used before spreading out to feed. The trap was assembled from strong steel panels, forming a wide enclosed circle capable of holding many animals at once. The entire structure was firmly anchored into ground to ensure stability during operation.
Okay.
The gate remained fully open so the herd could gradually become accustomed to the trap. Corn and other grains were then placed in the center as bait to lure the animals deep inside. The surrounding environment was left unchanged so that returning boars would not notice anything unusual. During the following nights, the wild boar herd returned along its familiar path and quickly approached the baited area. The leading animal stepped through the open gate and moved toward the center to feed. Finding nothing suspicious, the rest of the herd followed in small groups. Within a short time, most of the animals had gathered completely inside the enclosure. At the right moment, the management team activated the system. The heavy steel gate dropped instantly, sealing off the only exit. The trapped boars ran along the fence searching for a way out, but found no escape. Within seconds, the entire herd had been safely contained without requiring any direct physical confrontation. Once the herd had settled inside the trap, the management team entered to inspect the entire system and confirm the number of captured animals. The boars were then loaded onto specialized transport vehicles and relocated according to prepared wildlife management procedures. After the relocation was completed, the trap was cleaned, the steel framework thoroughly inspected, and fresh bait was added so it would be ready for future use. The camera system continued operating to monitor the arrival of new herds. Thanks to this continuous management effort, wild boar activity declined significantly, and both the agricultural land and nearby residential areas gradually returned to a stable condition, allowing local residents to continue farming and daily life with greater peace of mind.
For many years, wild boar herds lived deep within vast natural forests. They survived in groups and maintained stable population growth through successive generations. As the size of the herds increased, their demand for food also became greater than before. Traditional feeding areas gradually became insufficient to support all individuals within the herd. As a result, wild boars began expanding their range beyond their traditional habitat. They traveled across various types of terrain in search of new food sources. After expanding their range, wild boar herds began moving into agricultural areas located near the forests. Fields and cultivated lands quickly became attractive feeding grounds for them. At first, the herds appeared only at certain times, but their frequency gradually increased over time. They established regular travel routes between their shelter in the forest and the production areas outside. This made access to food much easier. As the number of individuals continued to grow, their range expanded as well. Residents repeatedly recorded signs and sightings of the herds in many different agricultural areas. Not only did the herds appear in production zones, but they also moved closer to nearby residential areas. The distance between humans and the herds gradually narrowed over time. Unexpected encounters began occurring more frequently than before. Some individuals reacted aggressively when they felt threatened or were approached at close range. In many situations, they were willing to charge in self-defense or to protect their herd. This caused increasing concern among local residents about safety risks in the area. Under these circumstances, controlling the wild boar population became an issue of special concern. To prepare for the control process, management teams conducted extensive surveys of the herd's activities across a wide area. The routes most frequently used by the herds were identified and carefully marked. In open areas, large circular traps made of strong steel frames were installed to contain multiple individuals at the same time. In addition, rectangular traps were placed along narrow travel corridors or in locations with favorable terrain. After the structures were completed, the gate systems were thoroughly inspected to ensure reliable operation. Once installation was finished, bait was placed at the center of the trap systems. After some time, the wild boars returned along their familiar feeding routes. The leading individuals approached the bait area and observed their surroundings before entering. When no signs of danger were detected, the animals behind quickly followed in small groups. The number of individuals inside the trap gradually increased with each wave of movement. The scent of the bait continued attracting more animals deeper into the controlled area. Before long, most of the herd had gathered within the trap perimeter. When favorable conditions appeared, the system was activated at the predetermined moment. The steel gates quickly closed and blocked all exits to the outside. The herd was immediately contained within the controlled area. The trapped animals repeatedly moved along the edges of the trap searching for an escape route, but none succeeded. Numerous collisions occurred between the herd and the steel framework, yet the entire structure remained firmly in place. After a short period, the herd gradually settled inside the enclosure. Once the herd had stabilized inside the trap, the management team approached the area and inspected the condition of the captured animals. Specialized transport vehicles were brought in to remove the herd from the location. After the transfer was completed, the trap system was inspected and maintained to prepare for future use. The area gradually returned to a stable state as the wild boars no longer appeared as frequently as before.
Especially farmers. As this week in Louisiana Agriculture's Avery Davidson shows us, some farmers now have their sights set on eradicating this costly and environmentally damaging problem.
A silent battle continues across the vast farmlands of Texas. Herds of wild hogs invade farms, tear up soil, destroy crops, and cause tens of thousands of dollars in damage within a few nights. Farmers worry not only about their strength, but also their ability to remember routes and avoid common control methods. Because of this, many landowners use enormous steel traps capable of capturing an entire herd at once.
Side of that trap, they hit a button on their cell phone, capture.
The problem usually begins with uprooted crops, damaged irrigation systems, and long furrows stretching from the field's edge into cultivated areas. Within a short time, the destruction increases and spreads to other parts of the farm. Wild hogs no longer appear occasionally in remote places, but expand their range across multiple regions. What was once considered rare has become a constant burden for many farmers. The damage is not limited to crops and farmland. Wild hogs may carry African swine fever, foot and mouth disease, respiratory illnesses, and bacteria such as Salmonella and E. coli. When they pass through water sources, livestock areas, or feed storage facilities, the risk of disease spreading to domestic pigs and other animals increases. Controlling wild hogs therefore protects harvests and reduces disease risks within the livestock industry. The threat to people has also become clearer in recent years. Wild hogs can become aggressive when cornered or when they feel their territory has been invaded, especially adult males during breeding season. Farmers, hunters, and outdoor workers may face serious danger if they approach too closely or block their path. Collisions near residential areas can damage vehicles and threaten drivers and passengers. As the damage grows, Texas authorities and residents have tested various control measures, including small traps, authorized hunting, and helicopter operations. However, most methods remove only a few animals, while the remaining hogs change routes and become more cautious. As a result, Circular steel traps have gained attention. These traps are designed to capture the entire herd simultaneously, without leaving animals behind. The trap resembles a small fortress in the middle of a field. Its fence is made of reinforced steel and secured to T-shaped posts driven nearly 1 meter into the ground. The gate is about 2.4 meters wide, weighs around 70 kilograms, and can withstand impacts from adult wild hogs weighing hundreds of kilograms. Once closed, it forms a sealed enclosure, making escape through or beneath the fence difficult. The trap's location greatly influences the operation's success. Operators usually select routes frequently used by wild hogs, places near water animal trails, or feeding areas. Infrared cameras monitor the number of animals, their arrival times, and the herd's reactions. For several days, corn is scattered from outside toward the deepest section, allowing the animals to become familiar with the structure and enter without suspicion. The most important part is avoiding closing the gate too early. Operators wait until cameras confirm that most animals, preferably the entire herd, have entered. A signal is then sent through the mobile network, allowing the gate to be activated remotely by smartphone. Within seconds, the steel gate drops and blocks the exit. Using this method, one trap captured more than 30 wild hogs weighing over 1 ton combined. The trap's effectiveness becomes clearer when considering the earlier damage. One morning, a farmer discovered long stretches of disturbed soil that looked as though heavy machinery had crossed a field overnight. Many young plants have been uprooted, their roots exposed on wet mud, while the damaged area extended deep into the field. At first, they believed the herd had passed through by chance, but returned days later. Once a wild hog herd establishes a familiar route, simple deterrents quickly lose effectiveness.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The animals return to places where they found food and continue expanding the damaged area unless stopped. For this reason, remotely controlled
What's that? So this goes.
Wild boars in Georgia are not only aggressive, but also quick to learn which places once put them in danger. One day they appear near the creek. The next, they circle through the woods or slip through another section of fence. Rhodes knows passive defense only leaves farmers constantly one step behind. A large sounder can destroy months of work in a single night. Instead of waiting for them to enter the crops, he positions steel traps and monitoring points along the farm boundary. His goal is clear: detect them early, block their routes, and keep the threat outside the fields. These no-entry zones are complete only when the traps sit directly along the boar's travel routes. During the day, Rhodes moves a large steel cage to the corner of the field, tightens a frame, secures the supports, and tests the drop gate. Along the farm edge, he finds a trail covered in overlapping tracks and quickly installs a second trap. The setup is not too difficult and can be learned by almost any farmer. Once the traps are ready, sweet corn is scattered around the entrances to mask the metallic scent and attract the boars. More corn is laid from farther away, forming a clear trail that guides them directly into the trapping area. After a full day of preparation, nightfall is when Rhodes finally tests his plan. Infrared cameras record groups of wild boars following the scattered corn and moving deep into steel traps placed along 3 entry routes. When the gates close, the area around the cornfield finally becomes quiet again. The next morning, Rhodes drives his pickup to each location. As expected, one trap group is running frantically inside. He backs the truck close, connects the trap gate to the transport compartment, and carefully guides the animals aboard. For a while, the operation should make the remaining boars wary of the area. Careful preparation had protected the field before serious damage could occur. The earlier success brings only a brief period of peace, as wild boars begin moving closer to the area where Rhodes and his family live. Torn up soil stretches toward the fence. Several posts are damaged, and new trails appear overnight. Rhodes bends down to inspect the ground and finds overlapping tracks from adult boars. These are not a few young animals wandering alone, but mature boars that have adapted to the old system. They avoid familiar traps, split into smaller groups, and constantly change their approach. Rhodes decides to install a thicker, stronger steel cage trap capable of holding both small sounders and solitary adults. After the group moves deep into the trap, Rhodes believes the plan is complete, but an unexpected problem occurs. The largest boars crowd toward one side, creating enough pressure to weaken sections of the fence and allowing the whole group to escape. That night, Rhodes checks the camera and sees several wild deer wandering into boar trap. Fortunately, they find their way out before becoming unintended catches. The The next morning, only one large male returns and is held inside. It is an old dominant boar that often leads a group. To Rhodes, controlling this individual is more valuable than capturing many smaller animals. With the confrontation over, Rhodes brings a large male back to process and make use of the meat. He selects the fresh lean cuts, slices them into suitable portions, and prepares an evening barbecue. As the coals begin to glow, family and friends gather around the grill to enjoy dishes made from wild boar. An animal that once caused serious damage has now become a valuable source of food for everyone. Wild boars clearly represent the conflict between nature and agricultural production. Although they provide certain benefits to natural forests, their destructive behavior and uncontrolled reproduction place enormous pressure on farmers. The struggle to manage wild boars reminds us of the importance of understanding natural patterns and applying smart technology to protect crops while preserving balance within the local ecosystem.